Now last time in Beyond the Mystery Boxes series where we analyzed the CoDZombies lore, we left off in Der Riese, or the Giant in German, a top-secret Group 935 facility where the Nazis seemingly experimented on humans and test subjects with element 115, turning them into the undead we're so familiar with. Now the four characters in Dempsey, Nikolai, Takio, and Richtofen were just chilling in the map right after the outbreak took place, but get this, they used the teleporters to get around the map faster, but one of these instances happened to be rather unfortunate actually, because you see, the teleporter overloaded due to the Wunderwaffe shot by one of the characters. This leads to something Zombies is rather notorious for, which we get to know the full extent of in the next game, Black Ops. We step into Kino der Toten, our arrival a spectacle of teleportation. The theater, though once grand, now exudes an aura of desolation as it greets us with its haunting ambience, where the once opulent red velvet curtains now hang drab in tatters. The walls and paneling remain weary from the weight of time, and the unsettling chimes of a desolate chandelier resonate like mournful whispers from a bygone era. It is more than apparent that this place has been languishing in abandonment for an exceptionally long time. In the loading screen, a series of panels track each of the Zombies maps released thus far, culminating with our intrepid crew standing in a teleporter at Der Riese. The years etched on the side serve as tantalizing breadcrumbs, alluding to the prospect of time travel? Oh fuck no!
Entry 741021! Perhaps this station will hold the key to the real goals of Group 935. I still do not trust my unconventional allies, but they are of great use to me. But I digress. Who would have thought the MDT was capable of time travel? How many stations does this group have? Where did that little girl disappear to? Only time will tell what new questions await us in this theater of the damned.
The practical monologue of Richtofen basically confirms at this point that Samantha has not exactly been killed yet. The prospect is made all the more haunting as there exists a child's playroom in the map, with various props from the maps released thus far. Only the room changes as you play on. It's likely that this, in some way, symbolizes Samantha's loss of innocence after the events that occurred at the Der Riese facility, with the once normal room transformed into a dark red, hellish and blood-stained scene with teddy bears strewn all over. I always like to imagine that the teddy bears served as omens of bad luck, along with symbolizing the presence of Samantha herself and how she's always watching you. There's a lot that is just off in this theater. Within the theater, the murky details of zombie experimentation clear up a bit more through the discovery of scattered film reels and radios. These recorded accounts tell of the harrowing pursuit of breaking into the zombie's subconscious in an effort to command them to be the perfect soldiers. Dr. Ludwig Maxis himself guides us through these disquieting records, detailing the seemingly promising progress with a specific test subject.
Another setback. Patient 26 was killed this morning in a field test. He lost control and attacked one of our handlers. His injuries were minor, but patient 26 was destroyed. The break-in programming coincided with the flashing lights and loud noises of the fire alarm in the test facility. One moment. What is it?
As far as the audio logs in this map go, that's about it. Well, except for one more. Now, this secret audio log details a rather troubling time in history. Seemingly out of place, it presents ample room for confusion. Here's the catch. If you want to listen to it, it's only available on the Nintendo Wii edition of this game. Now, this is by far my favorite game in the franchise, right? From the infinite mule kick glitch where you hold a grenade before buying a weapon, resulting in an extra weapon slot each time, to the floating radio held up only by the will of God, of course. And not to mention the, black boxes in the sky. I mean, Call of Duty Black Ops for the Nintendo Wii truly has it all, right? Now, the extra radio concept isn't just unique to this game, as there's also an extra radio in the iPod Touch version of Der Riese. Clearly, Treyarch took inspiration from Kingdom Hearts with how they scattered the most confusing lore across 50 games, 49 of which are only available on platforms like the Texas Instruments TI-84 graphic calculator. Now, for the rest of this video, I will be playing the Wii edition of this game to demonstrate my points. as it's simply the most superior version of the game, and I want to deliver the best experience for all of you, so I'm sure you understand. The hidden radio in this version of the game details some events that occurred during the Great Leap Forward, a very dark period in communist China's history, where the government, led by Mao Zedong, aimed to rapidly transform the country's economy and society into an industrial and communist utopia. It encouraged people to work collectively in large communes, boost agriculture production, and develop huge industries. However, the plan backfired, resulting in widespread famine, economic disaster, and deaths of an estimated average of around 30 million people, all due to poor planning, forced collectivization, and a diversion of resources away from agriculture. Now, if you've looked outside the map, you can notice the Fernsehturm along with what can be inferred to be the Berlin Wall, placing this map somewhere in 1960s Berlin. The obvious question that pops up is, how is the Great Leap Forward even related to anything at this point? Well, don't worry. That's a surprise tool that can help us later. The radio also basically confirms that the map takes place in the 60s at the very least, because the Great Leap Forward occurred over the years 1958 to 1962, but when you take into consideration how construction for the Berlin Wall and the Fernsehturm did not start until 1961 and 1965 respectively, it becomes apparent that the mid-60s is a decent ballpark estimate. As per the time period, there exist several movie posters on the walls of the map. Now, these movie posters bear more significance than one would actually expect. I have already covered one of these posters in a past video, but to quickly go over it again, there are two key elements here relevant to the lore. This poster spells out Pygmalion, which is in direct reference to an ancient Greek myth of the same name. Additionally, there are German words on the side that, when translated, say, "He created a woman, but he gave her free will." Now, in the myth, Pygmalion is a sculptor who finds himself unsatisfied with the women who surround him in the real world, disliking them for their flaws, bodily or otherwise. He retreats to his workshop, whereupon he crafts this ivory statue made in the image of what is the perfect woman in his mind, and he names the statue Galatea. Indeed, this is the world's first account of the average Redditor opting for a body pillow instead of an actual human being.
Dude, I think I have the greatest idea ever.
What is it, dude?
You know how we're probably never getting bitches?
Yeah?
Well, boy, do I have news for you. Why don't we just make the bitches? Hey, what's up, you virgins? Wait, what the shit is that fucking thing?
Not long after, he falls in love with the statue he's made, often spending his leisure time around it and even sleeping with it. He later heads down to a sacred temple, where he starts praying to the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite, for the statue to come to life. Returning home, he finds that his wish has indeed come true, and spends the rest of his life married to the woman who was once a statue. Surprisingly, unlike literally every other Greek myth, this one doesn't end in some horrible tragedy, but who knows, maybe he's insane and just imagines the statue to be alive. You never know for real. Though, the thing is, the poster itself resembles that of a 1927 German silent film called Metropolis, a dystopian tale centered around the pitfalls of human and corporate greed. So in the movie, the practical owner of the city called Metropolis uses slave labor and exploits the poor to power this haven of the ultra-rich. Deep below, though, in underground towns and facilities, you can see for yourself the grim reality propping up this illusion of grandeur for the privileged elites up above. Though a human side of the mastermind shows at one point, where he grieves the death of his wife. But in a turn of events, he ends up using the tech and labor available to him to build a robot in her image, drawing a clear parallel to the Tale of Pygmalion. The film also draws parallels to the Tower of Babel, which is this biblical story centered around this civilization that spoke the same language and lived together in unity. The civilization decided to embark on an extraordinary project that would symbolize their unity and pride by building a tower that would reach the heavens. As they worked, however, their ambitions and pride grew and grew. They believed that by constructing the towering edifice, they could challenge the very authority of God. They toiled day and night, with each brick and stone symbolizing their collective desire for greatness. But as the tower reached higher and higher, the people grew more arrogant and began to completely forget the moral principles that once guided them. The divine, aware of their arrogance and hubris, decided to intervene. In a moment of reckoning, a powerful windstorm swept through the land, leaving mass destruction and chaos in its wake. The mighty gusts of wind toppled the tower's construction, reducing it to ruins. The people who had been once so unified in their vision were suddenly scattered and confused, unable to communicate with each other as a result of the newly made language barriers. The story serves as a parable warning against the consequences of human pride and the perils of seeking limitless power, with a civilization forced to confront the idea that when humans overreach and forget their place in the grand scheme of things, they may very well face the wrath of powers infinitely greater than them, which is interestingly a Lovecraftian concept as well. The film makes great use of imagery to draw clear parallels to concepts such as this, with the tower signifying the pride of the ultra-rich and all that entails, and the haunting machine underground that chips away at the downtrodden as they helplessly work for the future of the select few who remain completely oblivious and uncaring as to their own moral undoing. If I can break continuity for a bit here, I can assure you in advance that these ideas play a huge role in the themes and motifs that constantly repeat throughout the zombies lore. Hell, there are some parallels that won't be established until like a decade after the fact. Understanding the fundamental themes that repeat time and time again helps a lot when it comes to understanding the lore. On that note, there is one final poster that bears quite a lot of significance. The poster of Faust. Now, as a 6-year-old kid, unaware of the many theories surrounding the game at the time, this poster truly struck a chord in me. I remember being transfixed by whom appears to be the devil here, thinking that maybe he is the mastermind behind the undead and the apocalypse. Unaware of it at the time, my line of reasoning was flawed, but still held some merit in indirect, more analogous ways. This poster refers to Faust, a historical figure who inspired a great deal of German folklore and literature that significantly influenced the world as time went on. He is believed to have been a real person who lived in Germany during the 16th century, but very little is known about his life with certainty. Still, he is believed to have been an itinerant magician, alchemist, astrologer, and possibly even a physician. The folklore surrounding Faust arose due to many different factors, an important one of which had to do with the Renaissance period in Europe, which roughly coincided with his life. As the period was known to foster a growing interest in not only academia and the arts, but also alchemy and the occult, Faust ended up in the perfect time period, gaining reputation for his eccentric activities that led to rumors and legends about his extraordinary knowledge and magical abilities. In fact, his background is thought to be the origin for the idea of selling one's soul to the devil, with works based on such a concept therefore dubbed Faustian. The figure inspired many plays, stories, poems, songs, and what have you, but the earlier plays are where their relevance truly lies. Dr. Faustus is one such play. Written by Christopher Marlowe, the play has its roots in the folklore surrounding the historical Faust. The play weaves a compelling narrative around this brilliant, ambitious, and insatiably curious man called Dr. Faustus. His unquenchable thirst for knowledge drives him to explore the profound mysteries of the world, pushing the boundaries of human understanding. However, his intellectual journey takes a dark turn as his relentless pursuit of wisdom leaves him frustrated and unfulfilled. In a moment of despair, he turns to the alluring realm of black magic, defiantly rejecting God's authority in the process. Driven by his boundless ambition, Faustus envisions wielding the limitless power promised by the dark arts, even fantasizing about ruling the world as an emperor. Faustus's descent into the abyss of forbidden knowledge intensifies when he summons the demon Mephistopheles, a loyal servant of Lucifer. Mephistopheles, having endured innumerable torments in hell, tries to dissuade Faustus from continuing down this treacherous path. He issues warnings, imploring Faustus to reconsider his choices, but the doctor, consumed by his pride and arrogance, persuades the demon to broker a pact with Lucifer, a pact in which Faustus is promised anything he desires in exchange for his immortal soul, eternalizing the concept of selling your soul to the devil. Faustus's decision, sealed with a contract signed in blood, fittingly enough, sets the stage for a fateful and irreversible chain of events. As Faustus gains access to an array of powerful books, incantations, and dark abilities, he uses his newfound knowledge not for virtuous or profound purposes, but for fleeting worldly pleasures, by entertaining kings and building a reputation as a scholar. This stark contrast between knowledge and wisdom becomes a central theme, emphasizing that while knowledge is the accumulation of facts and skills, wisdom is the profound understanding of how to apply that knowledge ethically and meaningfully in the real real world. Amid the Doctor's reckless journey, the play invokes the ideas of theologian John Calvin, who posited that because God, being omniscient, holds knowledge of the fate of every single human being, the notion of free will therefore is greatly challenged, as human actions and choices appear futile in the face of predestination. Faustus's tragic fate, therefore, prompts us to contemplate whether he was helplessly driven by a preordained destiny that he could never change, or doomed as a consequence of his own ill-conceived ambitions and desires. In the pursuit of forbidden knowledge and power, Faustus's inability to wield wisdom becomes strikingly evident, and his ambitions therefore remain unfulfilled. As Lucifer's servants arrive to claim his soul, eternally damning him to hell, the question lingers: was it all worth it? There's also a poster about a German ship called the Bismarck, but who cares about that? As a significant amount of time has passed since the Riese, it begs the question of how far 935 went in experimentation before completely dissolving. The question is prompted mostly because of the new gaseous zombie crawler and the various barrels on the stage filled with As the map takes place in the 60s, the relevant time period here would be the Cold War, in which the West had various ideological differences with the East as a result of growing communism. The notion is backed up as you navigate the alleyway and ascend into a room. There, you can find scattered letters coalescing to form the phrase, "Manhattan Down." The phrase is a veiled reference to the Manhattan Project, a clandestine research initiative of the 40s. In developing the atomic bomb, the project brought together many great scientific minds in a race against time. The man who most probably comes to everyone's mind upon hearing about this project is, of course, Dr. Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. Maybe people would stop calling him Death if he stopped dressing up like the Grim Reaper in a 1920s gangster movie. Benadryl hat man looking at. Now you might be wondering how the fuck Oppenheimer is related to anything, but surprisingly, if you exit the map and go to the main menu, you can access the terminal and log into Oppenheimer's secret CIA account and access many files related to the lore. Additionally, if you take it one step further and exit the game to go outside and touch some grass, you might just end up getting some bitches, but as such an idea is insane, we'll stick with the terminal. In all fairness, Oppenheimer isn't very relevant to the lore, but regardless, in the terminal, there's a ton of info surrounding a lot of the conspiracies that pop up in the game's campaign. Through various intel files you can pick up, among other things, you can figure out the passwords for many of the accounts of key figures like President Kennedy. However, there exists a deeper layer within the terminal called the Dreamland, which holds information more relevant to the zombies lore. One of the two notable accounts belongs to Vannevar Bush, who played a crucial role during World War II and later in shaping the post-war science policy of the US. Logging into the account, you can find concept art of some of the maps, but more importantly, you can find transcripts of some important dialogues. Some of them are benign, with stuff like Max says, figuring out how to use a computer for the first time. Others, however, are more striking, with this one transcript here confirming how element 115 has been found on the moon, and this other one detailing how the three other characters in Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takio have been experimented on in some way, which isn't very surprising given how zany and downright insane they can be, but you do have moments of true wisdom and clarity, like when Nikolai says,
"First it takes my money, then it disappears. Just like my fourth wife."
He's so real for that, honestly. He might have killed all 18 of his wives, and I'm sure she had a reason to disappear, but this transcript here exists as a follow-up to the very first radio we heard in Shinonuma, detailing how the swamp was a Group 935 outpost. It says how the voice in the recording belongs to... Decoding the letters results in the name Peter. This definitely won't cause a lot of bullshit like 10 years later. In another follow-up, this transcript shows how the operative Peter had been planted into Group 935 as a mole, whereupon he got transferred to Verrucht. As the US government feared for his safety, they sent a Marine recon unit for retrieval, led by one Tank Dempsey. Relating that fact with the experimentation Richthofen later performed on Dempsey, it is safe to assume he was later captured by 935 somehow. As for Peter, he presumably escaped during the outbreak, whereupon he was tasked to rendezvous at the Rising Sun facility in Shinonuma, which is very interesting when you, Anyway, let's move on. The letter itself is signed by a person going by the name Cornelius Purnell. Now, this guy definitely won't pop up like 15 years later either. Lastly, there exist several transcripts of Maxis's, Okay, how can I put this? Dr. Maxis may have had bitches, ladies and gentlemen, and one of his colleagues, Sophia, who had already been mentioned prior in one of the Riese radios, leads Maxis to think about some things. $5 says he uses 115 to create an ivory statue body pillow of her instead of, actually talking to her, as Max spends all his time around the prime time Zaza that is element 115. It's safe to say he is insane enough to do such a thing, as he himself points out how the element is affecting his mind, all the while Richtofen toys with him. Now, if you go into Vanavar's mail, you can find emails sent from Oppenheimer, with his discussing some rhyme that one of the Marines in Verrückt writes as he descends further down the spiral of insanity. Now, this shit could have gone quadruple platinum, bro. Like, put a beat over the shin, we're golden. Like, wait, let me find a royalty-free beat. Alright, there we go. Yeah. My name is John. They call me Banana. Once worked at a Tex-Mex cabana. Now that's some hello, my name is Eminem and I like to rap shit, bro. For real, what the fuck? There is a second email from Oppenheimer where he gives his password. Logging into his account, you can find transcripts of all the radios in Riese, along with the picture of some coked up looking zombie in a very ominous text file. Went down to the lake. Stumbled upon a secret. Will not sleep again. Which most probably refers to the lake at the Shinonuma facility. Now, just when you think that the US involvement with the zombies couldn't get any deeper, you finish the main campaign and play as President Kennedy fighting zombies alongside Fidel Castro. I mean, like, look. Whoever cooked up that shit, bro, like, not even that prime time Zaza is enough for that shit. Like, let me tell you. 5 is a map that takes place in the Pentagon, where instead of playing as Dempsey, Nikolai, Takio, and Richtofen, you play as President Kennedy, Fidel Castro, Robert McNamara, and the wiretapper himself, Richard Nixon. You'd think that going into this map from Kino that there would be even more audio logs pertaining to the lore, but there are none. The real lore in this map is more environmental, as you question why the Pentagon, thousands of miles away from Group 935 and their experiments, is even attacked by the zombies. At first, it is rather strange as you seem to spawn into the literal backrooms. Like, bro, where the hell is the Secret Service? It's not until you descend further underground that you get more of an understanding as to what's actually happening. The second layer of the Pentagon is where all the missions are planned out, with various types of machinery and a map of the globe. Now, this might be a stretch as I never actually saw any conclusive evidence for it, but I really do believe that this is truly one of the top secret government facilities of all time. Taking the main elevator in this room further underground though, you arrive at the final layer, the laboratories. The war room up above was just a ruse. This is where the true secrets lie. A myriad of confiscated materials of Group 935 is present everywhere, with parts of the teleporter here and barrels of Nova 6 gas there. The barrels themselves serve to be the first confirmation that the new zombie crawler in Kino is in fact made from the same Nova 6 gas found in the main game's campaign. The gas is essentially a kind of nerve toxin, and as this takes place in the Cold War, to see how much material the US has confiscated from the Nazis in Group 935 points heavily to an adaptation of the real-life Operation Paperclip. Now, launched in 1945 in the aftermath of Nazi Germany's defeat, the operation aimed to capitalize on the scientific prowess of former Third Reich members. The operation remains as one of the most controversial events in history, blurring ethical lines as individuals and outright criminals with extremely questionable pasts and affiliations were given complete immunity on the condition that they assimilate into the American scientific community. While not all the recruits had controversial backgrounds, with some genuinely seeking to distance themselves from the Nazi regime, Operation Paperclip's broader goal of acquiring technological expertise did involve compromises and ethical considerations. Regardless, they recruited around 1,600 individuals and accomplished their goal, with the most well-known recruit being former SS member Werner von Braun, who played a crucial role in the development of the V-2 rocket. Von Braun's expertise ended up being a driving force in the Cold War and the space race between the US and Soviet Russia, helping develop the Saturn V rocket that would eventually take humans to the moon. On the other hand, the Soviets had a similar program themselves called Operation Asovyakim, where they recruited around 2,500 former Nazi scientists. And I use the term recruit very loosely here, considering how the recruitment was usually done at a gunpoint, but like, hey, after they forced them to willfully agree on helping them in their post-war efforts, their developments, rivaling the US, set the stage for the resulting space race to land a human on the moon. And all of this serves as a backdrop for the next map, Ascension. But before we get to that point, there are still a few things left in the Pentagon. For instance, the Easter egg song of this map, Won't Back Down, featuring Eminem, continues the in-game lore surrounding Richtofen and the zombie experiments, with profound and striking lyrics such as, "Girl, shake that ass like a donkey with Parkinson's." It really encapsulates the themes of ambition and desire present in the lore. One might think that shaking it like a donkey is enough, but to add Parkinson's into the mix really highlights how Dr. Richtofen will always take it one step further. The most important thing in the map, though, arguably lies in the panic room, which opens up after you lower the DEFCON level of the facility down to 1, thereby declaring a national nuclear emergency. In the panic room lies an expose. Russians launch first primate into space, and it returned a... Now, Dead Ops Arcade is a game mode that I've always loved, and until this point, I literally didn't even know it was technically canon to the zombie story, so y'all bitches gonna have to bear with me on this one, let me tell you. So this is a game mode where you play as a soldier on an island with the sole objective of plundering and looting some treasure. The only problem is, some big-ass gorilla from outer space wants to do the exact same thing, and the truth is, this might very well be the most sensible plotline in this entire game, believe you me. And it's kind of a spoiler, but it's worth noting how the main character has a literal love relationship with a chicken. Like, bro, look, I love KFC as much as the next person, but like, I'm sure that this is illegal in all but 4 states. And the fact that there's 4 states that don't criminalize it deserves its own 8-hour analysis video for real. One of the most interesting things about this iteration of the game has to do with a little bit of trivia. There was a type of zombie called the Engineer that was cut from the game before release. Concept art of the zombie can be found in the terminal, and unused sound files of stuff like his screams and spawn sound effects still remain in the game files, with creepy ass shit like bells playing. It had always been thought that the zombie ended up being another mini-boss that will come up later on in the game, but the zombie is actually also present in Dead Ops. It had always been the coolest thing to me as a kid, and I always wondered how this zombie would play out in Kino and how many extra sleepless nights I would have as a result. I really shouldn't have played these games at the age of 6 for real. Dead Ops Arcade is pretty linear, with you're going through each level, racking up points and treasure before finally coming face to face in what is the first boss fight of zombies. I am technically correct, and you know it. Now, the trick to this boss fight is to activate God mode as early as round 1, because this game is absolutely impossible to beat otherwise. You take him down, but bro just respawns and knocks your ass back to round 1. Now, what this represents is the ever-repeating cycle of life present in beliefs such as Buddhism, which will repeat throughout the zombies' lore perchance. And so, for the next 3 hours, I shall discuss the religion right from its very origins. So, in the 6th century, in what is now modern-day Nepal, Siddhartha Gautama, going back to the Panic Room in 5, with a rocket as a backdrop and the space race as a title, the second page of the expose pertains to the next map in the storyline, Ascension.
Oh man, some training. What do you know about training, baby? Whoo! Whoo, this is not easy. Wow, I'm actually super impressed with myself there.
You'll of course only get to see Ascension next week, because to be fair, right, I am known as a rake fire ball buster and Paul after all, like, you get me for real.